as long as I'm providing you with what you need by the deadline that it's due in a quality that is expected, does it matter if I finished at 2 in the morning versus 5 p.m.?
That's a debate, to be honest with you, because the first thing I think of is someone saying the time that you are to work is from this to this, and that's what you're getting paid for.
Leading Ain't Easy, the show that cuts through the noise and gets real about leadership. I'm Ryan Calkins, Marine Corps veteran and founder of Reframe and Rise, and I'm here with my good friend and fellow leader, John Moore, as we unpack the highs, lows, and hard-earned lessons of what it actually takes to lead with character in today's world. It's not another highlight reel or fluffy leadership pep talk. We're talking about the stuff most people don't, the doubt, the pressure, the people problems, the pivots, and the personal growth that it demands. Because the truth is, leadership looks good on paper, but in real life, leading ain't easy.
Welcome back to Leading Ain't Easy. Today we wanted to focus on the concept of moving from the corner office to a Zoom room, and how the loss of a physical presence has kind of changed the way that authority is established in leadership.
And also what the office represents, if you will, to a person. And does it offer a sense of respect? Does it offer a sense of authority? What does it offer? Having an actual space that quantifies you as leadership versus a camera that now quantifies you still as leadership. So yeah, it'd be interesting to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, well, the corner office itself used to mean something, right? Everybody had
Yeah.
cubicles, or you had a side office that maybe had a window, maybe didn't. But having that corner office was like you made it. You were somebody, and just having the authority by association to walk through the room. It's like, oh, there's John. He's got the corner office,
hmm
and it was somebody that you aspired to be.
I think it was what we even put on our career pathing in a lot of ways is that was it, to get that office or to get a office, period,
Yeah.
was very important. And now we're in a different, form of technology because of the pandemic where we're now remote, which of course is there's conveniences there. There's a lot of conveniences there. We're talking about no commuting. We're talking about, being able to work more, having the flexibility and all those wonderful things. But I wonder, does the flexibility in remote or virtual work take away from a sense of leadership and the power of leadership? What do you think about that?
I don't know. I struggle because I have always been somebody that has been in deep, like on the cutting edge of technology. And I've always prided myself on that. And technology just evolves so fast that I don't know, like 20 years ago, it's like you could be in on everything. And now it's like there's so much moving and being developed that you could be up to speed on one thing and behind on 10 other things. And I don't know, for me personally, I always do better and have historically done better in person. And the only F I ever got in school was the one online class that I took in college. I don't even remember what class it was, not that it matters,
Um,
but
yeah.
it was just the concept of having to do your work and then go into a chat and regurgitate the same thing that 30 other people have done to say the same thing just seemed like such a waste of time to me. And it was part of, the passing grade is to have this conversation that doesn't matter. I don't know. So I struggled, and it was the only F I ever got, and I never took another online course again. So
I didn't struggle too much because I started remote work back in the 90s, late 90s. So getting the remote work kind of concept was okay. Then moving forward, while you were talking, I was thinking, wow, I was talking to people at Zoom before there was really Zoom. I remember before that we were just, trying to figure out how we were going to incorporate it into our company. And now it's like the leading edge. If it's not Zoom, it's Google Meets. If it's not Google Meets, it's whatever other platform that we're using. But I think it does something to to your point, I think it does something to the socialization, the importance of meeting is different. Collaborating in the conference room was
Yeah.
different because it seems like we got more things done. Somebody may disagree online and say, "Ah, I get more things done now," but I have a client that says he doesn't even know what his fellow coworkers look like because the majority of them are off camera. And it's like he doesn't even. He said the only way he would know them if they walk past him is just to hear their voice. He said, but he's never seen any of his employee, never seen his boss.
That's insane
That's
to me.
crazy to me. He said he's never met his boss, never in person, and now his boss, I think, moved to Texas, and so he's thinking about going to see him. But I couldn't believe that. It's like, what? Yeah, it changes it. It really changes. Yeah.
Like, you may have been, remote pre-COVID. I'm not gonna say I've never worked from home. Like, there was the opportunity, you were sick, you had stuff to do, whatever. But it was it wasn't fully remote for me, at least, until COVID, and it was forced, and then everybody was working from home and trying to adapt and learn. And I don't know, I guess a lot of leadership used to happen through just physical presence and being there, whether, we like to admit it or not. And when I was in the military and when I was at Waste Management, it was just managing drivers. Everything was very physical. You were there before the sun came up, and you would walk the yard, and you made sure that drivers were doing what they needed to do and that everything was being safe, and you would have conversations face to face because when you're dealing with safety, I mean, you need face to face conversation, and you lose a lot of that online. Is Yeah, I can see you, and our faces, but you lose a lot of the nonverbal. And, you have a driver say, "Yeah, whatever," but underneath they're like, "Screw this," and I don't know, but it's just people see how you carry yourself, and you see how they carry themselves. And if people disappeared when things got hard, or I don't know, it was just so much more value in being in person, at least for me. And like I said, the authority, a lot of it came just from your presence alone.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Do you think going into this whole virtual world, it has changed the authority of leadership? Because it doesn't have that same sting like it used to.
I think in a way it does, because I feel like in person, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody else, but I feel like you can build trust quicker in person and interacting with people and what you share and what people reciprocate. And it goes farther for me than meeting somebody online or getting, emails back and forth, where you lose a lot of kind of that interpersonal relationship building, I guess. And they're just, if I don't see you and you're just somebody online that I talk to and communicate with, even if you're my boss, I don't have the same investment in you. And yeah, I mean, I'll do what I need to do to keep my job, but it's like, why am I going to go above and beyond for John when I don't even know him, you know?
And I agree with that. I think that it changes dynamically. I think it changes how leadership use that word, and that we're thinking the same word, how they trust their employees, because you can't, it's not to keep an eye on them as if you are micromanaging, but it's for the purpose of learning their habits, learning their ways, being able to see their facial expressions that they like something or don't like something, and all of
Yeah.
those wonderful, human facets that we need you lose. I mean, don't get it twisted. I love remote. But at the same time, there is some loss there. There's loss in leadership, leadership's authority. It's a loss in trust. There's the using the trust policy, but not knowing what your staff members are doing because you can't physically see them. It's a huge change. It really, really is.
And it was harder for me, the transition, with COVID, because I was at, the consulting firm at the time. And, in person, we were in the office, everybody could see each other working. I could walk over to your office, We could talk about an issue. We could work through it right there, hammer something out, and everybody saw each other working. And it was just easier to yeah, it was easier to collaborate and move things forward. And then the struggle for me with the transition to online became it felt like we had so many meetings that we never had before. And it was constant status updates because without you and I in person talking, it's like, okay, well, John doesn't know what I'm doing unless, okay, well, I just finished this or I'm working on this project. And like that just it was it was a minor thing, but it was tedious for me. And I hated sending status updates and it just I don't know, it felt like more hovering even though we weren't present, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think too when you're talking about it, it makes me think about the change of it all, and then how you felt so isolated, not because of COVID, but you feel isolated because you don't have, hey, can I? Hey, could you? What are you doing? None of those things are there anymore. So the isolation is there too. And I kind of remember that feeling like, dang, I can't go and just ask, so and so, let's look at this report together and like not set up a meeting because that's another thing that,
Mhm.
virtual does. Everything is set up a meeting where we could just come into the office and say, hey, let's look at the report. Let's look at this. Let's just do this. That went out of the way. But I want to come back on that leadership component because I think, and then I'm asked this question, I want to touch on a little bit more. I think on back onto the leadership that they really lost a lot of their authority in a lot of ways because the presence of that person being there or could come and see if you're slacking or whatever is gone. Now it's like she doesn't know what I'm doing. Now people are doing two and three jobs while they're on one job, right? Um, I hear people in the Philippines and the cockadoodle doos are in the back, and all of these crazy things are happening because now everybody's working remote. I think it's the pros and there's some cons to it, but I think leadership has gotten a huge kick in the butt from it because they can't really manage. They can't manage now. Call centers, I find, do quite well because they have systems that can discern whether or not someone's at their desk for a period of time. They can record calls. They can kind of be more interactive and kind of follow what's happening. But if it's labor intensive or it's something that's not that way, it's hard to manage people and it's hard for you to stay in that respect thing. What do you think?
I think that's right. The authority piece was a challenge, and, like, looking back for me personally, the biggest struggle was it felt kind of like losing the control, and I don't mean that in, like, a command and control sense, but you control, like, your narrative, right? When you're present, because if I walk over to your office I can bug you for a minute, but I get the response then when I need it, where I send you an email, I have no idea what you're doing and I'm waiting for you to respond, or I send you a chat and it says you're available, but you don't respond to me for 3 hours. I'm like, John, I need this answer.
Right.
So
Went over to your office, a cubicle, and then boom.
yeah. And I think the struggle with that control was really trying to recreate the physical presence digitally,
Mm.
which is kind of impossible, right? And I don't know. I mean, I guess for me, I had to learn to adapt in the sense that it forced me in emails and chat and phone conversations to be more clear in what it was that I was seeking. And I was always a person that kind of struggled with articulating exactly what I needed, but being there in person, being able to talk through, it was easy to get that out. And when you lose that interaction, it became a roadblock for me to getting things done until I'm like, okay, well, I need to redraft this and put this out in a way, or I need to make sure that I have notes that I can be clear in exactly what I need and how I need it. And it just made me essentially force myself to be more intentional and consistent in what I was doing.
No, I 100% agree with you. And then you made me think about um, not only the intention behind it, but then the, for me, we went from being able to talk to one another. Everything is in email. And me, I can't stand everything in email. One, if it's too big of an email, I don't want to read anymore. I was coming to your office. It's like it's too much. I'm coming over. What are you trying to say? What's up? What's up? That's gone. You don't have that anymore. To your point, now I'm doing the chat or something. I'm trying to get your attention. You are probably gone off and having lunch with your girlfriends because you're not working, right? So it's like, where are you? So no, I remember very distinctively hating the fact, damn, everything was an email, everything is an email. And hey, did you get my email? Did you get my email? And then when we get the email, you can't understand the email, and it still is a conversation. It's still a conversation. And back then, we were able to sit down and say, what's going on? What is it at?" Now, no one wants to pick up the phone. Nobody wants to be on camera. It's like, oh my God. It's like it's really, it makes it more difficult. And I know someone's watching saying, I love it. I don't want to see my boss. I don't want people to see me. But it also loses the social angle of it and the socialization of it. It becomes more of an island you are on by yourself. It doesn't feel good. It really, really doesn't. And I can't understand people who can track better emails than tracking a conversation. That to me blows me because it's like having a conversation is more memorable than you remembering that email. What do you think?
Yes, I think, well, in the short term, but when you need to go back and find it, you can't pull a conversation back,
It's
where
true.
an
It's true.
email is there.
Well, true. But you can always go back and say, based on our conversation, that kind of an email,
Yeah.
yes. But I think sometimes it's just this whole bombarding of emails. It's like you never ever get done.
Well, it's true, but I also feel like an email is harder. Like, yeah, like I said, I force myself to be more clear and whatnot in my emails, but it's still like I find myself redrafting just to make sure there was nothing in it that could even be remotely offensive. Where having a conversation, you can typically tell, when somebody's being rude and crass and whatever. Where an email, sometimes somebody is just talking or typing. You're like, what an asshole, but they didn't mean anything rude by it at all.
Exactly. And thank God for ChatGPT now. I mean, thank God for AI because it's like we don't have to worry about any of that anymore. Hey, change the tone to this, make it sound like this. I mean, I love it.
But I also hate receiving something that was clearly AI generated. I'm like, seriously? Well, I mean, it's got the same tone and delivery and key phrases, and you're just like, really? You couldn't even like use AI and change it so it's somewhat personalized? I don't know.
No, because I like how mine does. It's like it takes that little block. It says, "Would you like me to respond?" I'm like, "Yes, whatever you want to say." Love it. I love it. No, yeah, because I mean everything is email, and that's just like golly. But I struggle with the whole that part of corporate was the emailing and the lack of being able to. It's not that I need to. Uh, I don't know. It's not that I need to necessarily because I've worked remotely for years. I appreciate it, being able to work at home. But dang, sometimes it's good to be able to say, "Come on, let's go have lunch," or "Come on, I'm coming to your office and we have a conversation." And listening to my staff, hearing, voices is one thing, but I want to see your face. I want to see your body language. That was important to me.
I mean, it still is to me. Like, I prefer to I'm not opposed to remote work. Like, for me, hybrid works best because I can have some days where I can be home, do what I need to do, etc. But I also like having that interaction and being able to meet up with people and not have to sync it with an online schedule and everything else. I mean, you're there, you can plan it, you can make it consistent. Like, for what I found myself doing with fully remote work for a while, it's like I'm working, but then I look over and I see tidying that I need to do or something else that I would never in a million years like want to do. I'm like, oh, I got to go do that. Like, I'll come back to this work. And I would just find every distraction possible in my house to where it's like, okay, well, I can't be here. I need to go to a coffee shop. So I would go to a coffee shop and get work done. So I'm still going somewhere. I'm just not going to the office, but I'm going to a pseudo office to do stuff.
Do you find it difficult turning it off and on in this new virtual world, turning work off?
I think I did initially, but it was more. a carryover from even, physical. It had nothing to do with the it was my personal boundary and continuing to do work rather than a physical boundary of being in work or online. It was me finally getting to a point to where I could say, at this time, like, I'm done. I'll respond to everything else tomorrow, early in the morning, whatever. And once I established my own boundary on when I was going to work and when I wasn't going to work, and unless shit hit the fan and I actually had to work to make it up, but on a normal day, I had my time regardless of where I was. The problem that I found is that I like my house and I like all the things that I have here, and it's easy to get
Distracted.
distracted and do other things where when you're in the office, I will say the a negative is if you have somebody that, is overly chatty that never gets work done and then they don't let you get work done, that can be a pain in the
Divisive.
office,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
that's also a boundary setting thing, right? Where you can let people know, like, "Hey, I would love to talk to you, but I have to get this done," or come back at whatever time. And I know we did an episode on boundary setting before, but that's essentially it. It's like when you allow people to overstep, they will continue to do it. And I don't mean overstep like, they're getting out of line or out of tone or rude. It's just the more you give, the more people will take, and not even intentionally or maliciously.
No, I don't think so either. But do you think also too, going back to the leadership component of the virtual world, or if you will, from the office to the Zoom meetings and the virtual, do you also find I'm coming back on that trust level? How does the and you touched on his roof, and I want to bring it back up, but how do we trust our employees in this new virtual world? How do we get to that level of trust that work is going to get done, that the availability is going to be there? How do we get there since now we can't see them in the cubicle and see the top of their heads? We can't see them and touch them like we used to. How do you think that's effective?
Well, I mean, part of it is, like I said, I didn't really like the reporting in and things like that. But really, the status report is a way of saying, like, this is what I'm doing. Take comfort in knowing that I'm getting these things done. I mean, obviously, you need to see the end result of what that is, and not somebody that's just
Shoot.
pushing, the ball down the road or whatever, and not actually getting anything done. I mean, part of it is the status report, but also receiving the deliverable.
And I agree, and then the quality and the quantity of the deliverable would help build the trust as well.
Yeah.
Because if you're seeing that you haven't had to tell an employee over and over again to have reports done or have these things completed, and you're seeing things being done in a timely fashion, and the availability is there, you can start to build. But then when you see the opposite, where even if I'm seeing a status report, but you're never available, even if you're seeing a status report, the quality of what you're giving me sucks out loud, right? So eh, there's this kind of there's this balancing act trying to figure out, okay, so what do we do with this? Because you have some people who take advantage of this whole virtual world, and they're not really participating in doing the job that they say they're doing, and then you have some people who are doing awesome jobs, but sometimes are being hindered because we've had a couple of bad apples. So now we're kind of hawking and hawkish over everyone and not just those individuals. It's a different kind of a approach, but it's one in which makes you all say, dang, what are we doing here? Because you don't have your eyes on your staff. And it's, again, not to micromanage them, but just to be able to manage your staff visually.
Well, I don't. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, like I said, I agree that I think physical presence was better for leadership for me also. But I've also talked to people where, they think that the loss of physical presence also exposes weak leadership, and it
Mm,
may. I mean, having somebody physically there, I don't know, maybe it was just the fact that they were nearby, and maybe,
it kept them in order.
yeah, and they weren't necessarily good leaders at all, and that could be the case.
Well, I mean, and I agree with that. But then also too, I think that was the whole mechanism of it too. That was the sense of coming in late, your boss to see you, that kind of stuff. Well, when we're virtual, unless you're doing call center work, they can, clock what time you're clocking in and, taking a call and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, you're on your own. There's a whole honesty policy kind of thing. I think it's called honest. Yeah, that honesty thingamajig. But other than that, nobody knows
Well,
what you're doing.
yeah, and well, that's part of the thing. Like I've had that conversation with people, and I mean, there's been times where I've done it myself, but there's the expectation that you're at your computer from the time that the office opens until the time that the office closes. And we all know that
That's not
that's not
how-
really what's happening, right? Not all the time anyway.
not always. Yeah.
Well, sometimes you have stuff to do, so you make up those hours later at night or you do it over the weekends.
Have a
And
doctor's appointment or whatever.
and I don't know, like I used to have the conversation with people where he's like, "Well, what difference does it make when I'm working if I'm getting it done?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you have a point." And then I'd find myself doing it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I enjoy having the convenience of being able to work when I need to work or, when I choose to work. And as long as I'm providing you with what you need by the deadline that it's due in a, uh, I don't want to say condition, but quality that is expected, does it matter if I finished at 2 in the morning versus 5 p.m.?
And that's a debate, to be honest with you, because the first thing I think of is someone saying the time that you are to work is from this to this, and that's what you're getting paid for, right? I could just hear it. I could hear it,
Right.
and those are the hours in which you're supposed to be. But then this new generation is like what you just stated. Well, if I get it done, why does it matter? I think it's a form of discipline in them getting things done, right? And then getting things done within the work hours so that if you had questions, whatever, there's no excuses to say, oh, I did this at 5 o'clock in the morning. I did this at 6 o'clock, whatever. I couldn't reach out to so and so. So therefore there was a delay and all of those different things. I think there's this balancing act of those two things, to be honest with you. You don't know because, to your point, you could say, well, whenever I got it done, right? Yeah, but still someone else says, but your work hours are from this to this. And when you're not available during those work hours because we're doing, possibly an appointment, kids, whatever, yeah, there could be some difficulties there.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the biggest gaps are if a meeting is mandatory or whatever it is where you need to actually be behind your computer. But like you said, you know somebody that can get on with no screen. So who knows? They could be in Hawaii with a black screen
Absolutely.
just listening to a call.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I mean, any of those things could be a facet. And that again goes into that whole trusting of your employee. But how do I trust my employee if I have never met them, have them not physically? So somebody says, what does meeting mean differently than us being online? It means everything. It means the world. I mean, you can see someone, you can, see again their body language. You can see how they interact with others. You can see the inconsistencies and the consistency. You can physically see it.
Yeah. No,
And there's a difference there.
well, I had a friend when I was at the consulting firm that went to it was like Denver or something and went for like a week or a week and a half and didn't tell anybody. Like was just there because
Hmm.
we were remote, so it didn't matter. Like the same work was getting done, but I mean,
You weren't at home.
should it matter? I don't know.
Well, that one I probably can speak more to because I would allow my staff, if my staff went somewhere and they said, well, I'm going to work while I'm there. I'm like, okay, well, you don't have to, but they'll like, no, I want to work. And they would work while they were somewhere else. Maybe they had to go take care of their mom or they had to take care of mama's appointment. So they went out of town, but they still were working. They were just
They would talk to you about it before.
talking about it before. Exactly. Is I'm in London to see a concert and I'm not anywhere. Because what if you say, "Well, hey, I need you to come in today?" That's where you would get busted.
Right. No, well, I mean that's what I'm saying, right? So that same situation where the person was gone, but you didn't know about it and then found out after the fact.
That's
Same
nice.
situation, but would you have a problem then because you didn't say, "Yeah, go ahead and do it."
This is true, and then there goes the trust. Because what if you would have just said, especially to me, "Hey, I'm going to go see this concert, but I'm still going to work, but I'm going to be out of town. Is it okay?" I'd be like, "Yeah, just make sure that we stay in contact." I probably would have said yes. Yeah, just communicate that to me. But what if I needed you that day to come into the office and I know you're supposed to be local and you're in London watching the damn concert
Or I mean,
on our dime?
yeah, or if you're 3 hours away, whatever it is, and
Yeah,
you can't
whatever.
make it. I mean,
Yeah, whatever. I had a friend actually, and I think I might have told you this. He moved from here, from Los Angeles, and he moved to Texas. And yeah, didn't tell the people. Just work, work, working away. I said, now what if they call your ass into the office? Then what?
well, hopefully they give me 24 hours so I can fly out.
Yeah, right. So it's a very precarious situation. This whole change. I think it was beneficial in a lot of ways, and then also it created this I don't know, this lack of socialization. Some people loved it. They really love the fact that I don't have to see people. Or I don't have to. I was like, wow, that's kind of deep. Some people liked it. Some people don't. I prefer virtual, but I prefer to have the availability if I needed to fly into an office, I would on my terms. Not that I had to be there 3 days out of the week and then 2 days off. Mm-mm. I really enjoy
Yeah.
virtual now.
I mean, I guess from a personal standpoint, the change to remote was a little difficult. Because I mean, the when you're used to being around everybody and being a team builder and focusing on camaraderie and just helping others, there is a sense of I guess loss of relevance and I don't know, like you're losing some type of influence in keeping that team together when you're not with the team and everything is remote, and it's just I don't know, I don't know how to explain it. It's just
Doing what?
something that I felt then that I struggled with. I
So did you feel like do you feel that it loses a sense of respect for the leader?
don't know if I necessarily felt like I lost any respect. It was just more I guess it was part of a sense of purpose at work, and yeah, being a leader and a manager of people, it's like at least for me, I was invested in the people that I was managing, right? And it meant something to me, and being around those people drove me to be a better leader.
Motivated you. Mhm.
And part of that, it just when it isn't there, it just feels weird to send a message on like an email or a chat, and it's like, hey, just checking in. You need anything? And I don't know. It feels equivalent to like posting a LinkedIn message and just leaving it there for somebody to engage, or not.
Yeah,
I don't
or
know.
not.
It's just a weird dynamic. And I have no idea if anybody else feels like that. That's how it felt for me, kind of transitioning to that remote style of work where it was just this weird sense of loss. I don't know how else to describe it.
No, no, actually, I agree with you. I was thinking about the number of luncheons that I took my staff out to lunch, and we went to lunch together. So that part of camaraderie, team building, and having relationships, and all of those kind of things were very, very important, and they do go away now. I mean, you can have, of course, a virtual lunch, but it's nothing like us all going to. We used to go to Macaroni Grill and just vegging it out, eating it out, and we're just having a good time, and we're talking work and personal and all of that, and it feels good, and you still are part of the leadership, and the leadership component is still there. Virtually, I want to go back to that. I think some leadership does lose that authority, to be honest with you, because again, out of sight, out of mind. out of sight, out of mind. One, you can't see what their comings and goings are. They can't see your comings and going. No one is keeping a tab on each other. I think sometimes that is there is, excuse me, that there is a lack of, or there's a form of loss of authority and respect. Maybe not to you personally. I'm just saying, just generally on leadership.
Right. No, I understand. I guess so with the shift to online, and you kind of mentioned the trust piece, and
Mhm.
so it I don't know. I mean, I guess there's kind of a forced sense of moving from presence mattering more to trust mattering more, just because the presence is forced to be less. So you have no choice but to trust more, right? And I guess every instance of somebody earning that trust and showing that they're committed to doing what they're doing, providing the deliverables as expected, the more trusting you get, and the more I guess the easier it becomes to do that remote work, right? So you adapt and just build through that experience.
I agree. I still find it difficult to find that balance of trust, to be honest with you, when someone is not there, because you're really banking on the fact that, and I know someone who's going to, give us a message saying, well, I get my work done, and that's great, you do, but what about all the others that don't, right? And so, therefore, being in leadership, you everything is on an honesty policy. You're hoping that everyone is doing what they're supposed to do, regardless. Period. But then when you go into this whole virtual world where you have no form of managing, that's just not. It's a different kind of feel. It's a whole different feel. It's a whole different feel.
Well, when you say no form of managing, wouldn't they argue that management is virtual?
Yeah, but I still, by me being more old school in that respect, that the manager's office is there. They'll see you and your comings and your goings, and the interactions. I'm unfortunately from that era. So therefore that's what has been ingrained, which I don't mind it, because it creates the responsibilities that we all should have. But at the same time, um, it's hard to not see what your employees are doing, back to your statement, and trust them, and trust that, even though I'm doing progress reports, even though I'm doing status reports, even though, yes, 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 but I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, we're both coming from physical to
Hmm.
remote, right? And being forced to change. And I don't know, like I would hate to be a new employee now coming into an environment that's already remote, right? And I don't mean to knock anybody that is doing that, but I'm saying, at least for me, where I'm coming from and the experience I have, I
Uh-huh.
feel like a lot of leadership is just kind of passively absorbed just through the presence of other leaders and seeing experience, where I feel like a lot of that can be lost in remote, right? And you're just like a little rectangle on a screen. And it just, I don't know, it feels to me like remote work compresses kind of leadership behavior, right? So weak communication is amplified. And the more that you struggle online, it's like immediately seen, and it's a quick way to lose respect. And I feel like people feel it when they see others, struggling. Where when you're in person, I don't see, now I'm struggling to articulate. So now I look like the weak communicator,
Going to good. Go ahead.
but it's just the like, if the communication is unclear and inconsistent, it's everybody else that's online sees it, right? So you got 20 or 30 little boxes
Yes.
where the clearer you are, it's like, oh, well, that person really knows what they're talking about. They should do a podcast.
Yes.
But and others, it's like, oh, that person shouldn't be on screen at all. They should never talk.
Exactly. it's also too interesting to see dynamically how people interact with leadership virtually versus in the physical. I mean, the interaction has changed too, to be honest with you, where it was, like you said, more of the presence and having the presence. I love what you said about um, uh, seeing other leaders and learning their habits and learning their ways. All of that is gone when it goes into virtual. The only way you figure that out is if somebody told you versus you observing and seeing. You know what? I like the way I watched how you were talking to so and so. I like that. I'm going to pick that up. Those little nuggets you get from being in the present, where when you're in the virtual, I mean, granted, somebody's going to say in our messages saying, well, you know what? When I'm in meetings, I'm a very observant. I get that. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. But there is a difference. There is a stark difference from being present and absorbing someone else's energy, their abilities, their techniques. You get that from that. Somebody just talking on the screen is just like somebody talking on the screen.
Well, it's all the subtle stuff. It's the confidence, the tone, the demeanor, the even the reputation. Just I
Yeah,
mean, seeing how people are, and I'm not saying you have to emulate everything that everybody does, but you just pick up what works and you see how people respond. And when you're in person, you just I don't know, there's like a vibe to it that you feel, where online
you don't
I
get
feel
that.
like half the time people zone out, they're working on other stuff during a meeting. You can see everybody's eyes over to the side, doing something else.
That's what I'm talking about.
And I don't know, like when we first even no, even before we went remote, I had a boss that he would schedule one-on-one meetings and the whole time he'd be typing away, uh-huh, uh-huh. And I'm like, are you even listening to what I'm saying? Like, why are we on this call? And I don't know. It was just like it was like offensive to join a meet. I'm like, that would be a good situation for me to where if the screen was black and I didn't have to see you and that you weren't paying attention and didn't give a shit what I was saying anyway, fine. But when I have to sit here and I'm looking at you and you're typing away, clearly doing something else, and I'm like, this is supposed to be like a performance check-in
Give
feedback thing.
take kind of thing. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. But and I think that I think that the change of going from the office, if you will, to the Zoom call has been very beneficial for this generation, lesser our generations or generations before us. And it's not because of age thing, it's not because of any of that. It is because of traditions, it's because of um, socialization that we were taught. If it wasn't from our, childhood and interacting with our peers, it was then when we became older and we got our coworkers. That whole thing was a build up, build up, build up, build up, and it's just different. It's totally different, totally different. And I think that we could appreciate the past as well as we can appreciate the present. But I think that the younger generation now appreciates more of this virtual because there's less that they have to do and more that they can feel like they're focused. And for us, we need a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and a little bit of that.
that's fair. I mean, I semi disagree with the age piece only because I feel like when we were coming up, age was a kind of determining factor for
Leadership.
a sense of automatic respect for somebody because you assume they know more and they're more knowledgeable. And we had office size, like we talked about before, that was a measure of somebody's knowledge and tenure and
Status. Yeah.
title and things
Status.
like that, where we just automatically provided respect for that person.
Absolutely.
And I do like where you're going with kind of the I guess newer generation in terms of remote work and whatever, because the sense of what we grew up and automatically respected seems to be fading in the sense that when you're
Unfortunately.
online, it's more, are you competent? Like, how can you help me? Are you trustworthy? All of these things that are Yeah, maybe they're probably healthier than what we grew up with and giving blind respect
Yeah, absolutely.
and trust, but at the same time, like I said, I do think that that is absolutely a benefit for younger people is how is this person helping me and really focusing on the things that matter.
Mhm.
But I do feel like they're like we also talked about, there's a big gap in what they're potentially losing by
Yes.
not having the in
Those
person.
nuggets, those in persons, those things, because they really, and I agree with you, they lose some really important social value and social skills that you very seldom can you get. When you see certain bosses that you admire or mentor after and so forth, and you see how they interact and how they do different things, they're little nuggets you're going to want to take for your own time when you become that same. But if somebody can say, "Oh yeah, but I can see that in the video call." No, you can't. It's a different feel. It's something different about being there with that person. So I totally get that. Totally get it. But I find it interesting that we're talking about this because this is something that I believe probably more people are dealing with than we can even believe about this whole transition of being in the office, being in the boardroom, and now we're on a Zoom call. Am I as important as I was before? Am I less important than I was before? I mean, a lot of people they put their stake in their whole career from a leadership standpoint, and that was about having the office. That was about
Mhm.
having the interactions in which we no longer may have because of the world that we're in right now. But then you have some people they're not phased. They're not phased at all. So it is. I wish we can do some surveys and figure out, who's doing what and how are they adjusting with it because it's changed, but it's changed some for the good and some for the bad. Yeah,
And so I think we're on the same page in not trying to deliver a message that remote work ruined leadership, but it has certainly changed leadership and how people show up and are effective.
and perceived. Absolutely, and perceived as well. I like what you said earlier about giving an automatic respect because of our traditions. We said age, we said so many different factors, and usually if they had that office, it was automatic. They were like, "Oh, that must be somebody important."
Yeah.
Because no one just gets an office. It has to be someone that was of importance. And then coming up in my ranks, only certain levels, AVP, VP, director, or SVP, they were only ones that were getting offices. So once you got to those statuses, that was another thing that gave you that automatic respect as well.
So do you think for some leaders, they didn't necessarily lose authority when work went remote, but rather I guess they lost the illusion of authority.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And could have been their whole everything. That was the whole purpose. They needed that for their own individual selves, which was this whole narrative of being important, the office, the status, and all of that. Yeah, because that could have been the way they were groomed, and that was the way that they were mentored. Now that's gone. Now what do I have? How do I, you know, for lack of better words, how do I have the authority that I would have had if I was in the office? Because I would have had 40 something people that I would oversee. Now you oversee 40 something people, but they're all virtual and I don't know who's who. I don't have relationships. There's a whole difference in that.
Man, I had this this boss that was over the whole well, I don't want to say his title because
I'll
everybody
say
would know
it.
who he was when I was there, but he notoriously would make his rounds so everybody would see him there, but he was also a guy that was like get drinks after work or whatever and he'd give you some of the secrets and he'd be like,
See?
"Hey John, the key to everything is you show up early and everybody sees you there, and then you got to be there at the end of the day so everybody sees you there." He's like, "The middle of the day, go take a nap, do whatever."
Crazy.
And I'm like, "Okay, so you're making your rounds, everybody sees you there. How do you maintain that same facade, I guess, when everything is remote?" Not I mean, not that you have to worry about it in the waste industry because everybody has to be present because
Mhm.
the nature of the business, but
Yes, exactly.
But I mean, if you're that type of manager in a
That
business that is now remote, it's like, how do you still maintain that presence that you relied on?
mhm, and that's true, and I think that's why it has affected so many people differently because they staked their whole everything was on that, and now it's gone bye-bye. Just imagine what that's doing to some people. It's probably really effing them up. They're like, "Dang, I thought I was gonna be this. I thought I was gonna be that. I thought I was gonna," and have all these, aspiration, and then all of that is changed from one outbreak, if you will. A pandemic has totally changed that.
Well, I mean, for people listening, if your staff didn't see you for 2 to 3 weeks, would your authority still hold?
That's a good point. That's a good point. And would you feel personally that you're no longer in the same career pathing or mentoring that you had saw of others now in this particular vehicle? Because it changes everything, your hopes and dreams you possibly could have had and aspired to have rather, by having staff and all these wonderful things. And now, yeah, you have them, but you don't feel like you really have them. It's a difference.
Man, this was a fun conversation. I feel like there was a lot to I gotta I'm running away with a lot of stuff to continue considering.
Listen, I always have fun conversations with you. All right. This was good. This was very good.
Well, for those of you listening, until next week, leading ain't easy.
But you don't have to do it alone.
Thanks for tuning in to Leading Ain't Easy. If something in today's episode resonated, please do us a favor and share it with someone else who leads or aspires to lead. Because honestly, none of us have this figured out, but we can all get better together. If you're a leader or professional feeling quietly stuck in your career, visit reframerise.com. It's a career and leadership coaching firm where I work with veterans and other high achievers to realign their work and lead with purpose. Again, that's reframerise.com. And if you're looking for leadership tools, training, or support for your transportation department, check out Bus Pro Network, where Ernie helps school transportation leaders across California build safer, stronger teams. Please subscribe wherever you listen, leave a review, and let us know what topics you'd like us to tackle in the future. And remember, leading ain't easy, but you don't have to do it alone.